Back again, still here at the Aviation Heritage Center in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. Flying in Vietnam, and especially in Laos, was compounded by the lack of nav aids, which we did not have. We did not have many VHF nav aids like VORs, like you have in the States to locate you, or satellite navigation, which is common now. Back then we had non-directional radio beacons, very few in Laos, or very few in Vietnam rather, and none in Laos. Everything was pretty much laid out into the basic navigation usage of a wind triangle. In other words, you drew a line between the 2 points that you had on the map, used a protractor to find out the heading, and then the distance, and you knew what your speed was, so it was a time distancing. You hold that heading for however many minutes it took to get to the destination, and then you'd be there on that heading, provided that the winds aloft were not in your favor. If you had a good solid wind and you had one way of checking it by checking your route over the terrain by matching it to the map, you could correct for this issue. But sometimes you were in the clouds and you didn't really know. And you'd get a little tingly feeling in your stomach as you let down where you thought you were, and hoping that there wasn't a mountain in the area, that you'd make your trip very short. And that did happen to some of our guys. They did hit mountains. One of our C-130s up in Laos did exactly the same thing. Even though they had a navigator on board, he obviously did not do his job, because they hit the tallest peak in Laos, Phu Bia, and scattered their remains over the jungle. Me, I guess I could say I'm lucky. I got away with most everything by catching a glimpse of the terrain down below, and I knew where I was. Because I made a habit of trying to recognize certain features of the terrain everywhere, so that I knew what was going to happen when I did let down. I wasn't letting down into a mountain. I letting down to a valley, rather. Traffic was another issue, particularly in Vietnam. Everybody was on a different frequency, and you didn't know who else was booming through the cloud that you were in. The Air Force had UHF, the Army had FM, we had a VHF, and whoever else, the Coast Guard or the Navy, I don't know what the hell they had. But we had some sparkling moments when you caught a glimpse of another airplane through the murk and knew that they didn't know you were there too. In Laos, I had one instance of that. Normally we told everybody where we were and where we're going and what altitude we're at. However, coming out of Udon in Thailand, 25 miles away from Vientiane, and then the airplanes coming out of Vientiane, we didn't really know. And I took off out of Udon one day and going up to 20 alternate, Long Chen, leveled off at 9,000 feet, and it was very turbulent. And the airplane was just bouncing around like hell, and there was no weather in the area until I looked out the front and I caught a dim glimpse of a white nav light on the tail of another 123 that had taken off out of Vientiane, going to the same destination. Pulled the power back and got away from that, and the turbulence died down because I wasn't in his wake anymore. But you had some sparkling moments of that everywhere. Most of the time, everybody was real good about telling you where they were. In some cases, they didn't. They didn't know where they were. And that would bring into the pucker factor of your trip. Weather in Laos was good and bad. We had what they called a rainy season, which brought, of course, a lot of rain and clouds and low ceilings. And we had a smoke season. The smoke season started early in the year. The smoke season was because the Mayo tribesmen and the Montagnards, they were burning the hillsides to get ground to plant the poppies in. And the smoke from these fires would come up and it caused the entire country to be a milk bottle to fly in. We, again, had to rely on our own communications between our aircraft, because we were the only ones there, to maintain separation. But there was one other factor in Laos, and that was the pilots flying the T-28s, the Hmong pilots. They did not have the same radio frequencies we had. And I had one case where I saw a flight of 4 go under my left wing coming in out of the murk, which gives you a little hi there moment. And there was other instances too, letting down into various strips, particularly the smoke season. It was a good time to harass new co-pilots for me. We'd get off the ground, it was like flying in a milk bottle, and give the co-pilot a heading to hold and slide my seat back and just pay no attention while he's trying to quell his fear of flying into the side of a mountain en route. And one in Siberia was, I always got in there because I knew the terrain around it. I knew the fence rows and the rice paddies. And I could let down in that little valley and come up on the end of the runway and land without ever seeing anything in front of me, except for the last quarter mile. And this was fun for me, but I know it was hell for the poor co-pilots that were flying with me. Thank you.